Whether you see it as a smart coupe or a sleekly styled three-door hatch, Kia's Proceed offers a sensible spin on sporty motoring. It's also well built, aggressively priced, and comes with a bulletproof warranty deal. Still sensible then, but with a little sexiness thrown in. Flair and desirability weren't really words you associated with Kia until recently, but that was before the brand brought us a stream of new models delivering just that. The funky Soul Super Mini, as well as more dynamic second-generation versions of the Sportage SUV and the cute Picanto city car. And before all of these, this car, the Proceed Coupe. Today, the temptation is to see it as little more than a three-door version of the brand's Focus Class Ceed family hatchback. But back in 2008, when this car was first launched, it was a shocking departure for Kia dealers more used to the dull family fare offered across the rest of the South Korean maker's range. Styled and positioned as a standalone affordable sports coupe, it was a key component in Kia's progression to their current position as one of the mass market's most forward-thinking brands. Though it now looks a touch conservative alongside obvious rivals, it remains far more affordable and more practical than any of them. Plus, in this improved form, it offers stronger safety, lower running costs and more equipment. Enough to keep the interest of family hatchback folk in search of something sportier? Let's find out. Now, get behind the wheel of a Proceed and you might begin to doubt Kia's claims that this is a standalone sportier model. There are, after all, few interior differences between this car and any ordinary five-door Ceed. A grippy three-spoke steering wheel from the funky smaller Soul model is probably the main interior difference. It's all quite a surprise after the stylized lines of the exterior, but one that you quickly come to terms with out on the road. Now here, as with a cabin, there are small, subtle differences, but in this case, they're enough to make more of a difference. You've got a thicker anti-roll bar, uprated dampers, and reprogrammed power steering. Now those dampers were rather over-firm on the original version of this model, spoiling the absorbent ride that, thanks to clever multi-link rear suspension, has always characterized five-door Ceed models. This revised Proceed is rather better though. The Koreans have drawn on the combined experience of both Lotus and Porsche in order to achieve a more supple balance thanks to softer springs and tauter, stiffer anti-roll bars. Now, if changes could have been made to the rather notchy manual gearbox and this slightly vague power steering, that would have been even better. The latter, the steering, artificially weights up when you get faster for a bit more feel. Overall though, it's a well-developed package that corners confidently with well-suppressed body roll, and one that, even when provoked, steadfastly refuses to do anything unexpected. The long wheelbase helps ride quality, with only really lumpy B-roads showing up any flaws in deportment. Refinement's really impressive too, even in diesel models like this one, thanks to the way that hollow sections of the body shell have been injected with soundproofing foam. Around town, well, visibility's pretty good. Only rear three-quarter vision could be better. It's marred by these thick rear three-quarter pillars, but there's a tight 10.3 metre turning circle. And under the bonnet, well, none of the Euro 5 engines on offer are especially powerful. This is, after all, a coupe that prioritises more sensible virtues. And no variant epitomises that approach better than the entry-level 89 brake horsepower 1.4 litre petrol version, only just fast enough to begin to justify those rakish looks. Rest to 60 occupying 11.2 seconds on the way to a top speed of 112 miles an hour. But it'd be perfect perhaps for a young motorist wanting something cheap to run and insure, maybe just starting out on their automotive journey. And it'd probably be a better bet than the next model up, the 124 brake horsepower petrol 1.6, which is only marginally faster, making rest to 60 in 10.4 seconds on the way to a top speed of 119 miles an hour. That's providing that you don't go for the 4-speed automatic version. Now, on paper, that's as fast as you can go in a Proceed. In practice, though, the extra torque and pulling power of the 1.6 litre CRDI diesel models, anything between 235 and 255 newton meters, well, that extra torque makes them feel significantly faster. Now, there are 3 1.6 litre CRDI units to choose from, developing either 89, 113 or 126 brake horsepower. The fastest two force you to do without Kia's green-fingered Eco-Dynamics tweaks, but are significantly faster, both making rest to 60 in about 11 seconds on the way to a top speed of around 120 miles an hour. Longer, lower and lighter than its 5-door stablemate, this Proceed might not now attract quite as many admiring glances as it did at its launch back in 2008, but it's still a good-looking piece of design, built in Slovenia and created by Europeans for Europeans. Nor has stylist Gregory Guillaume prioritised form above function, as we're about to find out, despite a 30mm reduction in overall height. This revised version features Kia's Tiger Nose front grille to give it a bit more attitude, something clearly evident in the sharply raised belt line and the sharp crease that flows below it into the rear wheel arches. Now, these features help disguise the fact that this sportier model actually rides on the same chassis as any other Ceed and features the same windscreen angle. Other than that, though, only the bonnet and the front wings are shared with the 5-door. At the rear, there's a raked back window to further emphasise the low-slung coupe-like stance that's further emphasised by this subtly sporty rear spoiler. Inside, the only really sporty touch is the 3-spoke wheel. Other than that, depending on the model you choose, there's faux aluminium or shiny piano black trim to try and jazz things up a little, but none of it is really enough to differentiate this cabin much from that of the standard 5-door Ceed. Still, the cabin itself is a pretty nice place to be, with the 3-dial instrument pack sitting below a single cowl and the centre stack here slightly angled towards the driver. And it should be possible for just about anyone to find the ideal driving position, thanks to a height adjustable driver's seat and a steering wheel that's adjustable for both reach and rake. Getting into the rear is made easier by these extra wide opening doors and memory position seats. And once there, thanks to a wheelbase identical to that of the 5-door Ceed family hatchback, there's enough room here for 2 fully sized adult occupants to feel quite comfortable on all but the longest journeys, providing they don't mind the slightly claustrophobic feel created by this high window line. Out back in the luggage bay, where there are useful features like this net to stop smaller items from moving around, the 340 litre boot capacity is the same as you get in a 5-door Ceed, and the 1,210 litre total that you get after pushing the 60/40 split folding rear seats forward is only 90 litres less. Pricing across the Proceed range sees it pitched at about £200 or so less model for model than the equivalent 5-door Ceed family hatchback that outsells this sporty variant 9-1. That means a Proceed pricing span that goes from around £13,500 to £19,000. Now, petrol people may want to think hard about whether the £1,300 premium necessary to go from the entry-level 1.4 to the 1.6 is really worth paying given the marginal performance gain you get. If you think it is, then you may also want to consider paying £1,200 on top of that for one of the 1.6 litre CRDI diesel derivatives. As for rivals, well, Kia is fortunate that these are pretty thin on the ground. The closest probably is Renault's Megane Coupe, a smaller, less practical car that costs around £2,000 more model for model. You could, I suppose, also consider things like 3-door versions of the Ford Focus or the Honda Civic, as well as cars like Volvo's C30 or Vauxhall's Astra GTC, but these are all far more expensive. Whichever Proceed model you choose, 1.4 or 1.6 litre petrol, or indeed one of the 1.6 litre CRDI diesels, you should find your car to be decently equipped. All models, after all, feature air conditioning that also cools the glove box, a decent quality MP3 compatible CD stereo with steering wheel audio controls and USB and AUX ports, electric windows, tinted glass, a box to carry your sunglasses, a hill holder clutch to stop you drifting backwards on uphill junctions, and a trip computer. Further up the range you'll find features like leather trim and a touchscreen satellite navigation system with a built-in reverse parking camera. And safety? Well, to begin with, Kia made the mistake of not including ESC's stability control across the range, an oversight now corrected by the addition of a system that also works with Kia's VSM vehicle stability management setup. You also get anti-whiplash head restraints, ISOFIX rear child seat fastenings, and all the usual electronic assistance for braking and traction, plus 6 airbags. Hence the 5-star Euro NCAP crash safety rating. Now, Proceed people must choose between power and parsimony, at least that is if they're looking at the diesel version. For the same money, you can have your 1.6 litre CRDI engine with either 113 brake horsepower or with only 89 bhp, but the compensation of Kia's package of green-fingered eco-dynamics tweaks. Now, if you take the greener approach, the main benefit is the inclusion of Kia's ISG intelligent stop-and-go system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or when you're waiting at the lights. And it makes quite a difference, improving the combined cycle fuel consumption, figure that you get in a 113 brake horsepower diesel model, that's 62.8 miles to the gallon. Well, that improves to 67.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle if you go for the Eco Dynamics 89 brake horsepower diesel model. The CO2 improves as well, from 118 grams per kilometre to just 103 grams per kilometre. And of course that'll make a big difference on your tax return. It'll also make a heck of a difference for business users as well. Companies will be able to claim a 100% company car tax write-down in the first year of operation, and business users will get a 13% benefit-in-kind tax liability, and that's about 5% better than is on offer from obvious rivals. Now, it's a pity that the ISG stop-and-go system isn't fitted more widely across the Proceed range, but other eco-conscious features like low rolling resistance tyres and a gear change indicator, well, they are, leading to a 5% fuel economy and efficiency improvement across the lineup. It also helps in this regard that this 3-door Seed model is about 84 kilograms lighter than its 5-door counterpart, and that the whole range benefits from highly efficient electric power steering. But all of this isn't enough to disguise the fact that the petrol units in this model range are amongst the older engines in Kia's lineup. That partly explains combined fuel consumption figures of 48.7 miles to the gallon for the 1.4 and 46.3 miles to the gallon for the petrol 1.6. CO2 returns vary between 139 grams per kilometre for the 1.4 and 146 grams per kilometre for the 1.6. Insurance groupings are quite competitive though, ranging between 13 and 17 on the 1 to 50 grouping scale. Routine servicing should be affordable. You'll need it once a year or every 12,500 or 20,000 miles, depending on the engine that you've chosen. And as a guide, over a typical 3-year ownership period, Kia reckons that your servicing costs for a diesel would work out to in the region of about £384, while for a petrol model in the region of about £428. Used car values are propped up nicely by the impressive warranty package, which is transferable onto subsequent owners. It's a 7-year, 100,000 mile package, although it's worth pointing out that only the engine and gearbox are actually covered for 7 years. It's a 5-year, 100,000 mile warranty for everything else. Is this a sports coupe or merely a 3-door family hatch? Your answer to those questions will be key in determining how you'll view this car. If, as Kia says, this really is an aspirational sports coupe, then it's not only extraordinarily practical, but also fantastic value for money. If, on the other hand, you view this car as merely a Kia Ceed with 2 fewer doors, then it's clearly less desirable. But even then, those key attributes still apply, as of course does the brand's industry-leading warranty. True, you might not think that practicality, peace of mind and price would rank very highly amongst the priorities of sports coupe buyers, even in this very affordable sector of the market. And for real enthusiasts, that might be the case. But real enthusiasts aren't the only people who buy cars of this kind. Take younger buyers who might like the idea of a sportier, racier look, but don't want to be saddled with high insurance premiums. Or older customers who desire a sporty coupe, but don't want an uncomfortable and impractical low-slung feel. Both will find a Pro Ceed to be a perfectly sensible proposition, but one with a touch of flair, just as we've come to expect from Kia.